How are we doing, Beatstar players? This is iRoaster505 here, and welcome back to another Beatstar Hard tier list. Today, it's finally time since Season 51 is out to talk about the Tour Pass Seasons 41 to 50, and talk about their standard hards. And this may be a stretch, but alternates will be included, but not in the way you expect. What do I mean by this? Well, let's take a look. Let's go on and continue. Since I did a lot of hard tier lists and extreme tier lists on this channel, the rules will be pretty simple. It'll only be the hards from 41 to 50, the scale will be 1 star easiest and 6 star the hardest. Tier list will be based on clearing and DP status, overall patterns, and this time for the alternates, how will they compare to others in terms of the overall difficulty. As usual, arrows will also mark whether a song's moving up or down a tier, and in this case, alternate versions from seasons 49 and 50 will be on a separate tier list. But that will be sometime later in this video. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get into it. When we separate the alternates from seasons 49 to 50, the whole entire standard hard tier list lands at 27 for the whole entire ordeal. That's way less than any other decade's worth of seasons, but let's give it a chance to see where does this land. So, let's get started. Presenting the standard hard tier list for seasons 41 to 50, or 48, whatever. The 1 stars here are pretty easy to understand why they all land here. Sin Piñama, while actually having a really good chart over here, is not that difficult when you actually get the ring to it. The only thing mildly difficult is the final stage, but even then that's still a stretch. We have a lot of easy hards this time, with Wish You Would from seasons 46 and Sorry from season 48, both actually being pretty on the nose when it comes to actually being hard. Honestly, not that much difficulty going in here, but you know what? They're actually more challenging than what's next to it. I think you all know where I'm going with this. Hey There Delilah. I don't know what is this, but this is actually the weirdest decision to make a hard, especially since it's now crowned the easiest hard in the entire game. There are no challenges available on this one other than the final stage ramping up the speed, and even then that's very easy to do. I don't know, maybe I'm too harsh on it, but I really do not see any challenge at all. I do think the chart technically is fine, but definitely not fine enough to be a hard. Sorry to tell you. On a lighter note, the 2 stars actually have 4 songs in this tier as well. Tango Un Plan and Stick Season are pretty straightforward songs, but having a few difficulty spikes near the end. Groove is in the hard, actually having a same difficulty spectrum as something like Funky Town, but being a slight bit easier by the final stage. But man, is it really fun. Speaking of really fun, we also have Therapy Sped Up for actually being a really amazing EDM/pop one that actually does really good when it comes to the repetitive patterns. And kind of like Pinata here, the stairs could be a little bit tricky, but honestly, when you know it's going to be repeated throughout the entire stage, it's not that bad. Here we are the 3 stars. Only 10 songs in this tier, which honestly, I kind of expected. We have some pretty straightforward ones like Evil Twin, Lost Lately, Pitbull, Sweet Emotion, and Come Up, all actually being pretty straightforward when it comes to the challenges here, whether being very dense, throwing some twists at the end, having a really interesting spike like in Lost Lately, or just having a chill time like something like Sweet Emotion. This 3-star tier right over here is probably the most mixed of the entire standard hards I talked about so far, because there are some here that do kind of stretch it a bit. For example, there's Rollin' in the End, where some players do think it's actually worthy of a low 3. Now, the patterns here are definitely straightforward, but honestly, there are some weird things in here that do actually give it a bit of an edge over a 2-star. Like Roland has a bunch of swipes here that are being more dense here, like something like Counting Stars, and in the end, having a really interesting finale here where you have to do a bit of jumping. And of course, the usual high 3s go to Revenger with some of the more interesting build-ups going on. Fall from Grace for actually being a really amazing song here and a really nice bump up in the final stage. And Catch 22 for being one of the most imbalanced standard hards I played. Very easy first 4 stages, but very challenging last stage. I never thought I saw that in a way like this, but this chart is basically Avalon done correctly. Up next is the 4 stars. Only 7 songs land in this tier, which is honestly kind of disappointing for this decade's worth of seasons, but I do think these ones do dedicate a more bigger challenge than usual. We do have the lower ones like Psychosocial and Afterlife, where some players do find it a bit more easier than some others on this list, which is understandable. We have Noise Pollution like Favelas, but actually good chart technically. And of course we have Rude Boys here, which actually is a really nice EDM chart as well. We have Gone Gone Gone, a really amazing country star port. I'm actually really surprised it actually managed to pull off a really fun chart. And Surfboard for actually being something I really like in hip-hop, actually showing really good density in an undercharted and underrated rap song. I really think Beatstar really strikes gold with these things. I just wish there would be a lot more when it comes to that. Oh, I almost forgot one more. A high 4-star over here is When I Break My Back for actually having some pretty interesting difficulty by the final stage. It's not that difficult enough to warrant a 5-star, but I think the challenge here is really good. But if you really do want a 5-star, play the deluxe. It is great, trust me. And now we have the 5 stars. Only 2 songs land in the entire 27-song lineup: Exogenesis and Cosmic Fracture. Cosmic Fracture standard here has some of the same mentality as something like Getting High, where it definitely throws a lot of different patterns at you, but the timing here is actually also very inconsistent. You need to figure out where you're supposed to go and understand the best way to actually do with this chart. It's not going to give you a break at all, and you better understand that this is going to give you one heck of a time. And of course, the hardest of all of them, in my opinion, is definitely Exogenesis. Basically here, this is actually on the same level as something like How We Win and Play, where it definitely actually wants you to learn all these patterns that come your way. It does actually have a few hints of some other 6 stars in here, like Everybody Falls with a few points, but honestly, when you actually get down to it and practice it a bit, it doesn't land the 6-star. But with that said, the 6-star still has nothing again. So that gives me an idea, probably thinking that if there's not actually a 6-star within the seasons prior or decade, I think it's maybe best to retire this tier for now for hards. I will keep the 6-star tier for maybe for the extremes of the future, but hards will probably be on the sideline. Anyways, that is the standard hard tier list for seasons 41 to 48. I know it says 50, but there really are no new standards in 49 to 50. We'll get to that in a second. Overall here, this is probably the most bare bones kind of variety I've seen here. We do definitely get some harder ones along the way, but we gotten a lot more easier ones than usual. I know seasons 31 to 40 had a lot of 2 stars in here, but at least the 2 stars had a lot of flavor to it. I do think the 3 stars and 4 stars were definitely the best of the seasons, and I do think the 5 stars do something to stand out. But is it just me, or are they actually adding more easier or hards than usual? Kinda would be nice if we actually went back to more 4s and 5s, just saying. But anyways, let's move on. And for this one over here, I decided to actually separate the standard hard tier list for the alternate, or encore as some people call it, into their own tier list for seasons 49 and 50. And it shows to me here that of the 10 encore hearts that we actually got here, most of them seems to land more into the 2 and 3 stars. We usually get the 1 stars here that are pretty straightforward, like Is This Love and Tiny Dancer, and we usually get some pretty interesting ones like Go Your Own Way that does things a little bit interesting. And we usually get some of the more really amazing ones like something like Clocks, Ain't No Mountain High, I Write Sins on Tragedies, and all those small things. But if I'm looking very closely over here, most of them so far don't even crack the 4 or 5 star difficulty. Obviously, there are 2 reasons why. One, they already have deluxes, well, most of them at least, so obviously charting them a little less here is going to hurt them in difficulty. And 2, for those that don't have a deluxe yet, it gives them the opportunity to work a little bit up behind the scenes to figure out what they think they want to do for difficulty. Because I do think the ones that don't have a deluxe yet actually strike gold best here. Clocks is definitely the best one on the entire list, and I haven't shown this yet, but in season 51, Crazy is another example, but that will come into seasons 51 to 60. And of course, I will not be including this in my final standard hard tier list. They are just alternates and normals rather than new songs. If you like to count them as such, then go ahead and do it, but honestly, I don't think it'll be counting. So here is the updated standard hard tier list till season 50. With all these hards in mind over here, I'm going to be probably asking you all which ones you think is actually going to be the ones that should go up, ones that go down, or which ones to stay the same. If you think a specific one is actually more confident at dropping, then I think I understand why. I do think maybe a few old Journey songs here are very close to dropping, and I do think some old grounds from the 4 or 5s are actually close to jumping up, since the whole entire list this time is pretty favoring of the 3 stars. The 4 stars are definitely growing as usual as well here, but we really got a very big lack of 5 stars as recently. And of course with the 6 stars here, I think the less said about that one the better. There's definitely not going to be one that's going to be as hard as something like Jingle Jam, We Won't Cooperate, or You Say What. So I think with that, maybe it's best for the 6 stars to lay to rest for a little while. Now if there's a hard out there in the seasons 51 to 60 that surprised me, like say, whoa, that definitely deserves to be an extreme, then maybe I'll open the 6 star lineup again for maybe just that one. But other than that, I really don't see any other understanding to continue 6 star going forward. It'll definitely stay for the hardest ones in the game, but probably won't be for the newer ones. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. Special thanks go once again to my inspiration, Ben, Matson, and Dan for helping me make this tier list here. And of course also to Dan for actually giving me the idea to separate these alternates and encores. Maybe I'll actually make a separate video saying like how do these encores stack themselves up against the regular standard hards or even the deluxe hards. But I don't know, I think it's actually kind of scratching the surface a bit. I do want to wait a little bit, maybe before season 60 to see where do the encores stand. And I really hope we get back to shape with the newer songs in Tour Pass, because like the rest of us, I'm just really sick of these encores. They are all definitely good charts, but come on, we all need new songs once in a while. And of course, another special thanks for the Beatstar handbook and Game Discord community for all the encouragement and for labeling all the songs, because, you know, I really did miss maybe a few of them. And as always, thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.